Hello and welcome. Today we're going to talk about something that's on the mind of so many parents and caregivers, a child's speech. You know, those cute little mispronunciations. Ever find yourself wondering if it's just a phase or maybe something more? Well, let's get into it and find some clarity together.
Does this sound familiar to you? You hear your kids say rabbit instead of rabbit, or maybe they just drop the last sound off a word, so cat becomes ka. I mean, it's adorable at first, right? But then there's that little question that pops up. At what point does it go from being cute to being a real concern? We're going to break down exactly what's going on with these common speech patterns.
To really understand this, I want you to meet someone. Let's talk about a real 5-year-old boy. He was this bright, energetic kid, just bursting with things to say. But there was a problem. His teachers, and even his own friends, could barely understand what he was trying to tell them. Just take a second and imagine how incredibly frustrating that must have been for him, you know? Having all these amazing ideas inside, but they're trapped behind the words that won't come out right.
Yeah, his speech is only intelligible about 50% of the time. Think about that. For every 2 sentences he spoke, one of them was basically lost in translation. That's more than just a communication issue. It's a barrier to making friends, to learning, to really connecting with the world around him.
So let's get down to it. What's really happening when a child is struggling to speak clearly? This isn't just about making cute mistakes. This often falls under a professional umbrella term, speech sound disorders. But what does that actually mean in plain English?
Okay, so a speech sound disorder is basically when a child has trouble making certain sounds correctly. And here's the key part. This trouble continues past the age when most other kids have already figured it out. So it's not just about making a mistake. It's about making mistakes that are no longer typical for their age group. And what's super interesting is that sounds tend to show up in a pretty predictable order. You know, by age 3, most kids have nailed the easy ones, like p and m, the ones you just make with your lips. But the really tricky ones, like R or that th sound, those often don't fully click into place until a kid is 6 or even 7, because they require some serious tongue gymnastics. This timeline is a really helpful guide, but remember, it's not a super strict rulebook.
And it's important to note that not all speech errors are created equal. They generally fall into 2 main buckets. On one hand, you have an articulation disorder. This is a physical problem with making one specific sound. Think of it like a misfiring engine. The tongue just isn't moving to the right spot to make, say, a clean s sound, and you get a lisp. Then, on the other hand, you have a phonological disorder. This is totally different. It's not about the mouth, it's about the brain's understanding of sound rules. It's like working from a scrambled recipe, where a whole pattern of sounds is off, like swapping every k sound for a t sound, turning cat into tat and car into tar. See the difference?
And of course, this leads us to the biggest question every parent asks. Why? Why is this happening? What's causing it? So let's dig into some of the known causes and risk factors.
Now, the very first thing on this list is probably the most important one for parents to hear. Ready? A lot of the time, the cause is simply unknown. It's not something you did wrong, it's nobody's fault. Now, sure, other things can play a role. It can run in families, or it could be related to hearing loss from things like nonstop ear infections. But honestly, in so many cases, we never find a single clear reason. But here's the thing. No matter what the cause is, this is the real bottom line, the absolute crucial takeaway. The sooner a potential issue gets looked at, the better the outcome for the child. That whole let's just wait and see approach, it might not be the best move if your gut is telling you something's up. Okay, so let's say you do decide to get some help. What happens next? The whole assessment process can sound really formal and a little scary, but it's not. It's really just a speech-language pathologist acting like a detective, gathering clues to figure out exactly what's going on with your child's speech. So this detective work starts with a simple conversation with you, the parents. I mean, you're the expert on your kid, right? Then the specialist will do a quick check of the mouth, the tongue, the palate, just to make sure all the equipment is working the way it should. A hearing check is a must-do, because think about it. If you can't hear a sound clearly, how can you be expected to say it clearly? And finally, they'll use some standardized tests, and honestly, just play and chat with your child to hear their speech in a natural setting, and pinpoint the exact error patterns. All right, once that detective work is done and there's a clear picture, we get to the most important part, the path forward. This is where the real work and the real hope begins. And it's a journey where the family plays an absolutely critical role.
And therapy is definitely not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. If it's an articulation problem, remember the misfiring engine, the therapy will be all about the mechanics, drilling how to physically make that one sound. But if it's a phonological disorder, the scrambled recipe, therapy is about teaching the brain the rules of the game. It often involves using pairs of words that sound really similar, like key and tea, to help the brain finally hear and understand the difference.
So let's check back in with our 5-year-old buddy from the beginning. His assessment showed he had a severe phonological disorder. He wasn't just struggling with one sound, his brain was swapping out entire groups of sounds for easier ones. So his therapy didn't just drill him on one sound over and over. Nope, it targeted the underlying rules he hadn't picked up on, helping his brain basically rewire its sound map.
And the results? Get this. After just 4 months of that targeted therapy, his speech intelligibility, how much people could understand him, skyrocketed from 50% all the way up to 80%. That is life-changing, a total transformation, all because he got the right kind of help at the right time. He could finally share all those wonderful ideas and, most importantly, be understood. So what can you do at home to help? So much. Your role is huge. The best thing you can do is just model good speech without putting any pressure on them. So if your child says, "Look, a webbit," you can just smile and say, "Wow, what a fast rabbit." You're giving them the correct version without making them feel like they made a mistake. You can also gently build on what they say. If they point and say truck, you can say, "Yes, it's a big blue truck." And of course, reading books together and playing with silly rhymes are just fantastic, fun ways to build their awareness of sounds. And that really brings us to a final thought for all of us. Beyond all the definitions and the therapy techniques, maybe the most powerful thing we can do is just practice patience. For every single kid out there who is working so incredibly hard just to be understood, how can we become better, more patient listeners? It's a really important question to ask ourselves. Thanks so much for joining me today.